Well, hello, Andrew here again, and this is episode 195. And today we're looking at Peter. Yesterday we had the trial of Jesus before the religious leaders at the high priest's house, and now we're at the same venue, but we're looking at what happens with Peter. So we pick up the narrative at Matthew chapter 26, verses 69 to 75. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you're talking about." When he went out to the porch, another servant girl saw him and said to his bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to curse and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. I think that Peter really does get the bad rap that he doesn't entirely deserve. And partly it's because he's so out there. His failures are seen and writ large. But he's the one who's actually engaged. And this is the thing that we need to recognise. He's the one who steps out of the boat. He's the one who is there. He makes these claims and he fails. But he's the one who gives things a go. Now, while it's true that he claimed that he'd stick with Jesus right through to death, so did the rest of the disciples. If you go back earlier into the chapter, early in the chapter, they all said the same thing. Yes, we're there with you. It's Peter's actual words that are reported. It's the words that Peter used that are reported, not the other ones. They are simply echoing what he says. And it's Peter that is told that he would deny Jesus 3 times before the cock crows. But let's notice that Peter has to actually turn up in order for this to happen. And he does. Only Peter. Where are the rest of the disciples? Who knows? They've all gone to ground. It's Peter who actually shows up. And in order to deny Jesus, Peter has to front up in a public venue. And here he is, right here at Trial Central, at an almost secret, dead of the night trial to do away with Jesus, out of the public eye. This is kind of done in a corner, really, isn't it? They don't do this in the middle of the day when there's a possibility of a large crowd of protesters and the supporters of Jesus. No, it's done in the dead of the night. All through the night, this kind of process unfolds where Jesus is taken and is tried, away from the possibility of any intervention by the public. And Peter's there. He's right in the middle of enemy territory. Who's there except people who want to see Jesus done? That takes some courage. And as we see, he's not able to maintain it. But he shows up. And if anything, we discover it's his accent that betrays him and causes him to dig deeper the hole that he ends up digging for himself. And as we see the denials unfolding, it would seem that Peter is heading for the door. He recognises that he's in over his head. He's in where he does not have the courage to see this through. With his first denial, the die is cast. What can he do after this except doubling down? I wonder how shocked he was by this. He found himself in a position where a lie was easier and far less costly than the truth. Isn't that the way? That often that a lie is easier and less costly than the truth. Isn't that something that we're all at some level familiar with? He's only too aware of the likely consequences of admitting that he was one of Jesus' followers. And it's easy to stand by Jesus when he's in the company of friends, but much harder when he's in clearly hostile territory, where saying yes may prove to be may prove to be fatal. And like many of us, he discovers that he likes his life and wants to hang on to it for a little while longer. And it's not just death, it's also the prospect of torture, of pain and suffering that I imagine in those days, as in any day, is not very alluring. So having started down this path, it's difficult to depart from the narrative that he doesn't know Jesus. And if this is true, given that he's obviously and identifiably a Galilean, what's he doing there? In the high priest's house, in Jerusalem, in the middle of the night? What is he going to claim to be a reporter for the Nazareth Tribune or for the Capernaum Post? No, I don't think so. He recognizes that being there is a bad idea, and it's already proved to be costly. So as the cock crows, he's confronted starkly with his cowardice and goes out and weeps bitterly. I feel for him. There are two observations that I'd like to make, both of which I've kind of made before. And the first is that while this may seem like a terrible defeat, what I know from personal experience is that the sense of shame that it evokes is in fact a factor that will strengthen Peter in the future when he finds himself under the hammer. And he certainly does. He will recognize that the experience of shame is too high a price to pay, and will be courageous rather than experience this humiliation again. This experience will likely temper Peter for future trials. Awful though it may seem, it actually leads to a long-term benefit. And the second thing, which is actually is important, maybe even more so, is that Jesus does not judge Peter. While Peter may deem himself totally unworthy, what follows is that Jesus will not only forgive him and restore him, but elevate him to leadership among the disciples. He becomes the chief of the apostles, a position he holds for some time. And Jesus has already kind of hinted at this. In previous verses before this, he says, I'm going to lead you into Galilee after I'm risen. There's a sense of promise that whatever happens between now and then is not fatal. It's not the end of it all. What we see is that there is no failure that is ultimately beyond redemption. And sometimes, if not often, failure is required on the path to greatness for the development of character and of courage. God bless you.